So, as one debt problem is temporarily put to bed in Europe, another nightmare arrives to keep policymakers awake at night. All eyes are on the world's biggest economy, the United States, to see if the politicians can agree to lift the $14.3 trillion debt ceiling and avoid a default. Asia, which holds close to $3 trillion in US government debt, has more than a passing interest in the outcome, but nobody's panicking just yet. Here's Philip Lasker.
The debt ceiling must be lifted by August the 2nd to avoid a default. So the policymakers were out in force putting their case because the process will have to start soon.
Both leaders recognize they're running out of time. They need to get this process moving in the House by Monday night. To achieve that deadline, they need to have a framework that they know with complete confidence will pass both houses of Congress.
We're borrowing 42 cents on every dollar we spend. We have a $14.5 trillion national debt. It is time to get serious about stopping the spending here in Washington, D.C.
But President Obama wants a deal that takes him beyond the next election in 2012.
There is a way that we can avoid default and give certainty to this economy for a longer period than 5 months. The American people do not, the markets of the world do not want to watch this show again in 6 months.
This show was enough to spook the markets throughout Asia, and Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke has warned of catastrophe if the debt ceiling isn't raised. But some think the Fed chief is putting on his own show.
But you've got to remember that the Ben Bernankes and the ratings agencies have a lot of incentive to push the negotiators on both sides to do a deal. That's why they're talking Armageddon, not, I suspect, because they genuinely believe it would happen.
But the failure to reach an agreement would mean, at the very least, immediate cuts in government spending, public servants going without paychecks, and another headwind for an already weak economy. So rather than leading to a spike in interest rates, the opposite might happen.
How that will spill over to Wall Street is more difficult to calculate. In circumstances where growth is significantly weakening, where inflation is turning down, bond investors might decide that US Treasuries are a good place to park their money, and yields could, surprisingly enough, actually come down.
But either way, today's problem is expected to be short-lived.
Roll forward a couple of months even, and you will see the US continuing to borrow at very low rates, and you will see the US dollar not too different from where it is today, and I would say you would have a deal in place.
They may have a technical default, but I don't think that will mean that people will stop buying the treasuries or stop buying the dollars, because you don't have any alternative investment tools.
The much bigger issue is one which will be seriously considered down the track once the US economy gathers momentum. That's when the government's debt reduction efforts will come under close scrutiny, and markets will decide whether the US is in a hole too deep to get out of.